Aire, and Minister, my question specifically relates to Galway City Council and Galway County Council, and what engagement, if any, your department has had, or any bodies under the aegis of your department in relation to the preparation of these plans, and in particular the inclusion of decarbonisation zones. And I say that in the context of the City Council having done great work and designated an area in the west side as a decarbonisation zone way back in April 21, which is over 2.5 years ago, with no further action because of the delay by the department.
Thank you very much indeed. The Climate Action and Low Carbon Development Amendment Act 2021 strengthens the role of local authorities for effective climate action. It sets out a statutory requirement for each local authority to prepare a local authority climate action plan. The local authority climate action plans must be consistent with the most recently approved National Climate Plan and include both mitigation and adaptation measures. I requested each local authority to begin preparation of their plans on the 24th of February last. I issued the statutory guidelines to support local authorities in preparing and implementing their local authority climate action plans on the 6th of March this year. As per the guidelines, each local authority climate action plan must include a decarbonising zone. A separate annex has been developed to assist local authorities with preparing their decarbonising zone. Once the local authority climate action plans have been approved by each local authority, implementation of the actions listed in the plan included in the DZs will commence. While my department has had no specific direct engagement with Galway City County Council in relation to the local authority climate action plans in 2023, I understood that the Environmental Protection Agency engaged with Galway City and County Council regarding the local authority CAP at the SEA scoping stage in October this year. Also, the Electricity Supply Board has planned engagement with Aire, which is assisting Galway City in the production of an energy master plan for the city and a DZ implementation plan for the West Side area. Can I just add to that, if I can, Carla? I myself have been engaged. I've been going to every single council across the country to discuss the climate action plans. And I found that very useful, talked to both management and councillors. One thing I would say, feedback, my sense of that is they need to be more ambitious in terms of showing leadership. I mentioned earlier on climate adaptation, councils, local authorities stepping up in terms of flood protection as part of our adaptation system. That's an example. But I believe as well in mitigation and reduction of emissions, it shouldn't be just about how we manage our street lighting, while that's important, or we manage our garbage vehicles or other kind of council trucks. And they have to think, in my mind, strategically about how their county and their towns and cities can become centres of excellence and can actually gain from this as an opportunity by showing leadership, thinking big, thinking strategically, thinking economic advantage that may come from decarbonisation, not just a narrow interpretation that it's what our own emissions within the council operations are. They should think and act and deliver plans that are bigger than that, in my mind.
Minister, I would agree with you totally. Absolutely. They should show vision and they should lead. That's very difficult when staff are constantly moved, when the county council is seriously underfunded, and when staff are moved from department to department. As soon as they get any expertise, they're moved off under pressure. So there's a serious role here for the government in relation to properly resourcing and treasuring the staff that work for local authorities. I have a different view, mind you, in relation to top management, which I believe has utterly failed to deal with the challenge of climate change. But the government is also at fault, and a very specific example of that is the decarbonisation zone, where the City Council did tremendous work. They designated the area back in February 21, Minister. They were hoping to roll out the plan by the end of the year. Then they were told to wait for the guidelines. The guidelines came just this year, and interestingly, decarbonisation zone are a demonstration and a test of what is possible for decarbonisation and climate action at local and community levels. No resources, no follow-up. They had to wait for those guidelines over 2 years later.
Thank agree with you about the resourcing of local authorities and that needing to increase across a whole range of different areas. In the area of climate, we have been doing that. We've established the 4 regional CARO offices so that we think, as a lot of maybe our smaller counties, to be perfectly honest, when you might have a total staff in the county of about 300 or 400 or 500, that is difficult. So having regional offices which have expertise and strength, that helps. They've been funded to the tune of 10 million. Also, we've also put in new climate community liaison and climate development officers in every single one of the councils. Those positions have all been filled, as I recall, and we're about to roll out further community funding for climate action at a community level. So I accept your point, that on its own will not be enough. But I think it is also sometimes about attitude, because I've seen in the councils I visited, some councils, even within the constrained resources, it's almost more an attitude of mind where you see this as an opportunity and for leadership within the existing resources, and they need to be expanded. And others see it, in my mind, have a narrow interpretation of what they could and should do. Lastly, I'd say in that, the opportunity is seen as well in a lot of towns, as I've seen it around the country, are starting to embrace this change as an ability, town centre first, bring life back in, bring economic development back in, by defining ourselves in this way, not just from an environmental or climate perspective, but as the kind of a better way of life, healthier towns, healthier communities that come out of it. And I think it's some of that attitude in local authorities across all the employees of the local authority is what I hope will be encouraged by the climate action plans.
Minister, I'm extremely, I hope, constructively critical of the City Council and the County Council in Galway. But it's not totally fair. They're under-resourced. They do not have enough staff, and the County Council is certainly at its wit's end. Then they're also competing with a model of development that has continued on, that was there before we declared a climate emergency, with the same absolute consumerism prevalent. And so we have no balanced regional development. We have Galway designated as one of the 5 cities, while Carrow, Creelor and Gaillimh is going under, with other towns as well. I can think of Kilmaine and Shrule that's just gone back to Mayo. So there's a misalignment of policies here, when they do something like designate the decarbonisation zone, 2.5 years later, no action from the government. They were waiting on the guidelines. And the guidelines puts an onerous responsibility on them to discuss and liaise and have co-partnership with stakeholders without any indication of what resources. In Galway City, we worked without a biodiversity officer till approximately a year ago, and the government tolerated that situation, and at local level they told us they couldn't recruit one because of resources. I'm not sure where the truth lies, but I have a great empathy for the staff on the ground working within the local authorities.
I accept your point about central government need to show greater speed. I absolutely accept that. And also the need for resources within our local authorities. Accept that as well. We'll have to continue to review that. I would say one point back to you though. It isn't just about the officials, it's also about the councillors, because they are the elected representatives, they're the heart, they're the leaders within the council. And I think some of the areas where it's not necessarily about financial commitment, it is in my mind about sense of vision for the future and making sometimes very difficult decisions. In the transport area, for example, we don't need to go much beyond your own city and council, where that hasn't been possible, and it's been a combination of both, in my mind, officials, but also councillors need to, and that's not all about financing and about resources. That is about willing to take hard decisions. Similarly, I think in councils across the country, we're going to need real leadership in terms of how we develop renewable power, because in certain counties, there's no renewable power, and others rightly saying, well, hold on a sec, we're taking it all here. Could we not balance this out? So I think it's in those maps, development plans for the likes of renewable power, it's in the likes of the decisions, and this can't be taken at a central government level. When I have these debates in the council chambers, I upfront say to them is, no Minister of Transport is going to decide what's the best place for a cycle lane or a bus lane. That has to come from local leadership working with the NTA. And sometimes it's the councillors we need to count on. And that's a resource we do know that's there, that they have a real key role, in my mind.